Imagine walking through a Neolithic village just after sunrise. A woman is crouched beside a goat, squeezing milk into a clay vessel. Nearby, a cow is being held while another person works at the udder. A few steps away, pigs root through scraps beside the houses. The pigs are domesticated too. They have milk too. So why does nobody sit down and milk the pig? Why did humans build entire food cultures around cow, goat, and sheep milk, while pig milk almost completely disappeared from the human menu? The obvious answer is that pig milk must be poisonous, disgusting, or somehow unusable. It is none of those things. Pig milk is real mammalian milk. It contains fat, protein, lactose, minerals, and other nutrients. Modern studies of sow milk routinely analyze these components because the milk has to support rapidly growing piglets. In fact, mature sow milk can contain around 5 to 7% fat and roughly 5% protein, depending on stage of lactation and the animal. That makes the mystery stranger. Pigs were domesticated thousands of years ago. Humans lived beside them. Humans milked other animals. Pig milk was nutritionally valuable, and yet almost nobody built a dairy economy around it. The answer begins with a difference that sounds small but changes everything. A cow, goat, or sheep can function as a milk reservoir. A pig functions more like a timed milk dispenser, surrounded by a crowd of impatient customers. To understand why, picture a sow lying on her side with a litter of piglets pressing against her belly. The piglets do not simply attach to a teat and drink whenever they want. They participate in a tightly coordinated nursing sequence. They gather, they massage the udder. They jostle for their preferred teats. The sow responds hormonally. Then the milk comes, and it comes fast. A 2023 review of swine lactation by Alexander Grahofer and Kelly Plush describes this nursing system in detail. After the piglets stimulate the udder, oxytocin causes milk ejection. The actual strong milk ejection phase lasts only around 20 seconds. 20 seconds. If you want pig milk, that is your window. Then you wait for the next nursing event. By later lactation, nursing intervals average around 50 minutes. Although there is substantial variation. Now compare that with the animal standing beside the pig pen, a goat. Dairy goats have large mammary cisterns. A cistern is a storage space inside the udder where milk can accumulate between milkings. Research on goat lactation shows that a large share of a goat's stored milk can sit in this cisternal compartment, ready to be removed. That anatomical difference is enormous for a human with 2 hands and a container. You approach the goat, you secure it. You milk 1 or 2 teats. Milk flows into the vessel. You can repeat the process every day. Now approach the sow. She may have more than a dozen teats. Her milk is distributed across separate mammary glands. Much of the system depends on stimulation from the litter. There is no large, convenient reservoir waiting for you in the same way. The piglets may massage for minutes before the crucial burst arrives. Then you have seconds to collect it. Suddenly, the question is no longer, can humans drink pig milk? The better question is, why would a farmer spend enormous effort collecting it when a goat is standing nearby? And here comes the first counterintuitive part. Sows are not necessarily poor milk producers. Modern, high-producing sows can generate impressive total quantities of milk. The same swine lactation review reports peak production at roughly 10 kilograms per day, on average, in one-sided dataset, with considerable variation. So the problem is not simply quantity. It is accessibility. The milk exists. The piglets are extremely good at getting it. Humans are badly matched to the delivery system. Evolution explains why. A cow usually raises 1 calf. A goat often raises 1 or a few kids. A pig is built around a litter. Instead of producing milk through a small number of large, easily handled teats for 1 or 2 offspring, a sow has many mammary glands feeding many piglets at once. Each piglet quickly develops a preferred place along the udder. Researchers call this teat fidelity. Piglets often return to the same teat or region repeatedly, reducing chaos during a milk event that is over almost as soon as it begins. This system is extremely effective if you are a piglet. It is terrible if you are trying to invent a dairy industry. Imagine the labor. You need the sow calm and lying down. You may need piglets to stimulate udder. You need to anticipate a milk letdown lasting seconds. You need to extract milk from multiple small teats. You need to avoid disrupting the piglets that depend on those glands. Then you repeat the entire process many times. A goat starts looking like sophisticated agricultural technology. But anatomy is only one part of the answer. The second part is what humans wanted from livestock. When Neolithic farmers began managing cattle, sheep, and goats, they discovered something economically powerful. You did not have to kill the animal to receive food. Milk allowed an animal to convert plants. Humans could not eat directly into a renewable source of calories and nutrients. A living female could produce offspring, manure, and milk year after year. Cattle could eventually contribute labor as well. Sheep could provide wool in later specialized economies. The animal became more than stored meat. Archaeology shows that this realization came very early. In 2008, Richard Evershed and colleagues analyzed absorbed fats in more than 200 prehistoric pottery vessels from the Near East and southeastern Europe. Chemical signatures in those pots showed that people were using milk by the 7th millennium BC. That is remarkably early in the history of farming. The evidence was especially strong in northwestern Anatolia, where cattle dairying appears to have been important. And the story is not limited to cattle. A 2026 study, led by Emmanuel Casanova, found evidence from pottery residues and proteins preserved in human dental calculus, showing widespread exploitation of sheep and goat dairy products on the Iranian plateau during the 7th millennium BC. So early farmers were not randomly milking every mammal they owned. They were repeatedly building dairy systems around ruminants. Ruminants are animals such as cattle, goats, and sheep that can digest fibrous plants through specialized fermentation before the food moves through the rest of the digestive system. That gives them a special economic role. They can graze pasture, browse shrubs, and consume plant material that humans cannot efficiently turn to food. Then they convert part of that landscape into milk. Pigs occupy a different niche. Pigs are omnivores. They can eat roots, nuts, fruits, crops, household waste, and many foods that humans can also eat. This made pigs incredibly useful, but useful in another way. They grow quickly. They reproduce rapidly. They can turn scraps and available foods into meat and fat. You do not need a pig to become a dairy machine for it to earn its place in the village. Its economic specialty is already strong. This becomes even clearer when you look at pig domestication itself. Ancient DNA research by Amke Kalibe, Alma Nebel, Cheryl Makarevich, Ben Krause-Kiora, and colleagues describes pigs being domesticated in the Near East around 8500 to 8000 BC, and later carried into Europe by farming populations. Humans had thousands of years of close contact with domestic pigs. There was time to notice their milk. There was time to experiment. Yet dairying did not become a major reason to keep them. That is important because cultural habits often survive when they solve a useful problem. If milking pigs had returned enough food for the labor required, some populations should have had a strong incentive to continue and intensify it. Instead, the archaeological signature of dairying overwhelmingly points toward cattle, sheep, goats, and in other regions, animals such as horses, camels, yaks, or reindeer. Different species, different cultures. Same basic principle. The dairy animals tend to be animals whose biology and management make repeated milk extraction worthwhile. The pig fails that test. There is another problem. You are competing with a large litter. Piglets depend heavily on access to the sow's individual mammary glands. The piglet stimulation helps maintain milk production itself. If a gland is not regularly suckled, its production can decline. So removing milk for humans is not simply taking surplus from one big tank. You are interfering with a tightly organized mother litter system. For a Neolithic household, that creates a bad trade. Piglets are future meat, breeding animals, and stored wealth. Every cup of milk that costs piglet growth has an opportunity cost. A dairy cow also has a calf, of course. Humans had to manage that competition too. But cattle, goats, and sheep offered a much more workable compromise between offspring survival and human milk extraction. Over generations, humans could then select animals for larger udders, greater yield, longer lactation, calmer handling, and more convenient milkability. That last word matters. Milkability means how easily and efficiently milk can be removed from an animal. You could have two species that produce similar total amounts of milk, yet one becomes a dairy animal, and the other does not, because the milk is packaged differently inside the body and released differently during nursing. Goats are a particularly revealing comparison. Reviews of dairy goat physiology note that goats can store a very large fraction of milk in the udder cistern. In some dairy goats, the cisternal portion can represent well over half of the stored milk. That means milk can accumulate between human milking sessions. The animal's anatomy cooperates with the farmer's schedule. The sow's anatomy cooperates with the piglet's schedule. That is the deeper answer. Agriculture does not domesticate only animals. It domesticates biological systems. A successful dairy species needs more than edible milk. It needs a reproductive system, udder anatomy, behavior, feeding ecology, and milk release pattern that can be inserted into a human routine. Morning milk pasture, evening milk again, repeat tomorrow. The pig resists that rhythm. Its nursing biology says something closer to this. Wait, massage. Piglets assemble, oxytocin rises. 20 seconds done. Try building a cheese industry around that. And cheese matters. Milk is valuable. But fresh milk spoils quickly without refrigeration. Early dairy cultures gained even more value by transforming milk into foods that lasted longer and could sometimes be easier to digest. Fermentation, yogurt-like products, butter, and cheese can concentrate or preserve nutrients. That turns a regular flow of milk into stored food. Archaeological pottery absorbed the fats from these practices strongly enough that researchers can detect dairy use thousands of years later. Once a community develops vessels, routines, herd structures, knowledge, and food traditions around cattle or goat milk, the system becomes self-reinforcing. Children learn which animals are milked. Breeders keep females that are easier to handle. Herds are organized around reproduction and lactation. Recipes evolve around the milk available. The strange part is that biology then changes humans too. Most mammals reduce production of lactase, the enzyme that breaks down milk sugar, after weaning. Many humans do as well, yet in several pastoral populations, genetic variants allowing lactase production into adulthood became common. Richard Evershed and colleagues showed in a 2022 Nature study that milk use across prehistoric Europe was widespread, long before adult lactase persistence became common. Humans did not simply evolve the ability to drink milk and then start dairying. Culture came first. Then, under particular conditions, human evolution responded to a world humans had created. That makes the absence of pig dairying even more revealing. Humans were willing to change diets. Humans were willing to change animals. Humans were even capable of changing genetically over generations in response to dairying. But the starting biological bargain still had to be good enough. Pig milk never offered the right bargain at scale. Could you milk a pig today? Yes. Researchers collect sow milk for scientific studies. With controlled animals, careful timing, stimulation, and sometimes hormonal assistance, milk can be obtained. Could a person drink it? There is nothing about ordinary sow milk that makes it automatically some forbidden poisonous liquid. It is milk adapted for piglets, with a composition that differs from cow or goat milk, just as milk composition differs across mammals. But possible is not the same as practical. You can also milk many other mammals that never became major dairy animals. Human food history is not a catalog of everything technically edible. It is a record of what repeatedly paid for the work. That is why the original question contains a hidden mistake. Humans did not choose cow and goat milk because someone tasted every species and declared those two the winners. The choice emerged from thousands of daily interactions between anatomy, behavior, ecology, reproduction, labor, and culture. Cattle and goats turned grass, leaves, and browse into milk that could be accumulated and extracted on a human schedule. Pigs turned a broad range of food into fast-growing litters, meat, and fat, while delivering their milk through a rapid nursing system designed for many piglets. Both strategies made pigs and ruminants valuable domestic animals. They simply made them valuable for different reasons. So return to the Neolithic village. The goat is being milked into a pot. The cow waits nearby. The sow lies down, and her piglets rush toward her belly. For a few seconds, milk flows. There is plenty of it, but it belongs to a biological system that is already working almost perfectly. Just not for you. Humans drink cow and goat milk not because pigs failed to make milk, but because cows and goats evolved a milk system. Humans could turn into a routine, an economy, and eventually a culture.